It's not who gets in the first word that counts, but who gets in the last word. Now, the guys that always get in the last word, brothers Tom and Dave.
Well, welcome to the March 25th, first day of spring issue.
Fourth day of spring. Fourth day of spring.
Well, it's the first day of spring for the last word.
Oh, for us, yes. Okay.
First day of spring for the last word. We want to thank you for starting out your week with us. And we're going to
mark the fact that today is 90 days since Christmas. 3 months today since Christmas. So I suggest that you start thinking about that list for the upcoming year, because another 90 days and another 90 days and another 90 days since Christmas again.
That's right.
Voila.
That's right.
Time passes when you're having fun.
Mm-hmm. Now, we want to, we're going to engage first with
Are you unmarried?
The mind trap question, because we're going to segue after that into our tummy settling section, into a little commentary about the elections and things in general. So let's go with mind trap. Justin Summers walks up and down a hill, which is 6 kilometers round trip. His dog, being slower, walks at half that speed. When Justin reaches the top of the hill, he turns around and he walks down, meeting his dog partway. Justin continues walking to the bottom of the hill at the same speed, and the dog follows him, also maintaining his original speed. How far does the dog walk?
That's the question.
That's the question.
Okay.
It kind of reminds you of being in school when you say a plane leaves New York at 3:30.
I hated those things.
And another one leaves Los Angeles.
I couldn't understand why they made us do that. I had no idea that math applied to real life. I thought the real math is just in doing the equations.
Anyway.
It has nothing to do with everything else.
Sometime in the rest of our show with our shameless teaser, we'll tell you the answer and how it comes about. Now, we had elections last Tuesday, and we did urge all of our listeners to vote. But And
voting is voting, but this is a little ridiculous.
One of the important things we would like to touch on is the candidacy of one Derek Smith, who was put in to fill a balance of a state representative's term as a Democrat, and was indicted on March 13th, a week before the primary. And all the party people all gathered around him and said, vote for Derek Smith, vote for Derek Smith, including one of them being U.S. Congressman Danny Davis. And what he had to say was, I was glad to see Derek win the election, but I think in reality, one can say that the Democrats won the election. I don't think they were necessarily voting for Derek, but I think they were saying Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. Thank you, Danny Davis. You're welcome.
Yeah, as long as we can use logic for anybody else, as long as it applies to both parties.
But the other gentleman on the ballot was a gentleman by the name of Tom Swiss, and Tom Swiss apparently is a born-again Democrat who was previously Republican. So our tummy settler for today has to do with those people changing parties. I was traveling between Phoenix and Ajo the other day, south of Gila Bend, when a tire blew out. Checking my spare, if I lapse into Arlo Guthrie, those of you who are old enough to know Arlo Guthrie Analysis Restaurant, you'll understand. And if you're young enough and you don't, then ask somebody with you who is older and they'll tell you. Checking my spare, I found that it was flat, and my only option was to flag down a passing motorist and get a ride to the next town. Now, the first vehicle to stop was an old man in a van, and he yelled out to me, "You need a lift, son?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And he says, "You Republican or Democrat?" And I told him I was a Republican. He says, "Well, you just go to heck," and he sped off. Then another guy stopped. He rolled down the window and asked the same question. And again, I gave him the same answer, that I was a Republican, and he flipped me the bird and he left. Well, I thought this over, and I decided maybe I should change my strategy, since there seemed to be overly political people here, and they appeared to be very few Republicans. Well, the next car to stop was a red convertible driven by a beautiful blonde, and she smiled seductively and asked me if I was a Republican or Democrat, and I shouted to her I was a Democrat. So she hollered back, hop in, and I did. And then driving down the road, I couldn't help but stare at the gorgeous woman in the seat next to me, the wind blowing through her hair, the perfect breasts, and the short skirt that kept going higher and higher and higher and higher up her legs. Finally, I yelled, please stop the car, and she slammed on the brakes, and I jumped out, and she says, what's the matter? And I says, I can't take it anymore. I've only been a Democrat for 5 minutes, and I already want to screw somebody. So, I don't know. It appears that it was really not Tom Swiss who wanted to screw anybody. But as usual, it appears it was the Democratic machine that wanted to screw their voters.
Because now they're calling for his resignation.
Yeah.
Now that the seat was won, so that they can put somebody in who was not nominated by the Democrats or not put up for a vote by the Democrats, and now asking him to resign after the election.
Yeah. So because God forbid that the Democrats would say one of their own should not be elected because they're under indictment before a primary.
Well, remember this quote. We have to store this away in archives because, Tom, I think it's going to be inevitable that some Republican is going to make something's going to happen in the future. Some more future Democrats are going to get indicted. Republicans are going to get indicted. I think that's going to happen as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So whenever that happens, let's remember this quote. It's not just about the man, but it's also about, as Ossie Davis said, the plan. Davis said, I think people were intelligent enough, they were wise enough, they understood enough that they wanted to give themselves another chance to get a good, solid Democrat to represent them. So it's about the plan. Remember, it's never about the man who's indicted, it's about the plan.
Yeah, and it's not about the people. It's about the party's plan for the people.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, Derek Smith was a very good candidate until probably about 7:30 or 7:45 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then he became a bad candidate.
Exactly.
So all of you people who were, I guess I'm going to be offensive. All of you people who were dumb enough to vote for Derek Smith in the state Republican or state representative 10th district, you're getting what you voted for. And I don't particularly mind if you get what you vote for. Same thing holds true to Chicago. Same thing holds true to Cook County. It's just that when you guys start affecting the rest of the state, then I'm not particularly happy with how you affect me. And if you don't like it, call us or give us an email at the last word at yahoo.com. Speaking of which,
yes,
you remember when we were talking about long, lengthy marriages?
Last week?
And this
regretting
is
a day of it? Yes.
The people who were married for a long time and didn't regret a day of it.
Yeah.
We got a couple of emails about that. One of them was from Nick in Melrose Park. Nick said that he was married on August 17th, 1980, and he doesn't regret a day of it.
Which day doesn't he regret?
And the day that he doesn't regret is August 17th, 1980. And we got similar stuff.
Why? Because what happened? It was his wedding night. I think
that's right. Yeah. And we got a similar email from Washington in Ford Heights, and also from Stash in the west side of Chicago, and also from Nathan. And Nathan's from the lakefront in Chicago. They weren't all married on that same date in 1980, but basically that was it. Their best night of their marriage was their wedding night. Now, that being said, if any of you ladies out there want to explain why that was the situation, you're free to respond to us at thelastword@yahoo.com and tell us why everything seemed to go downhill after that first day.
Well, let's be fair. Let's ask them if they were
Let's see if they don't regret a day of it. They may regret their wedding day, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, like from that old Jonathan Winters record, where you take your clothes off. What a disappointment.
Jonathan Winters, one of the
premier,
the pre-Robin Williams. If I could see Jonathan Winters in his prime and Robin Williams going at it head on, that would be just ecstasy.
Well, speaking of entertainment and things like that, I think it's time. Let's move on to the Alice. I decided on the way that some of this is even part of what you talked about with Democrats and Smith is the Alice in Wonderland section in the show.
Oh, okay.
Where left is right is left, up is down, and down is up. We're going to talk about the Massachusetts principle that replaces St. Patrick's Day with O Green Day. Here at The Last Word on WIND 560 AM. See you on the other side of the break.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
Welcome back here with Little Brother Dave and Big Brother Tom to The Last Word, and we're going to talk about our Alice in Wonderland segment. That's because...
is someone wearing the ruby slippers?
No. What are you doing? Alice in Wonderland. What are you talking about?
Oh!
You're doing the Wizard of Oz. You're doing the Wizard of Oz. I said Alice in Wonderland. What are you doing?
I guess I'll have to just leave. Oh!
Yeah, no
I'm
kidding.
melting.
Gee whiz. God. Well, getting back to the fact that this is Alice in Wonderland time, let's talk about what
Alice in Wonderland?
Alice in Wonderland time, yeah.
How about another cup of tea?
That's better, thank you. Another piece of pie. But
yes.
Yeah,
Let's talk about Alice.
Well, why should I even talk about the topic if we're going to keep it like this? But it's always these things seem to either come out more even recently in Massachusetts than even out of California. It seems that Massachusetts is starting to replace California as the place of wackiness and political correctness gone amok. But there is a teacher a principal. There is a principal at a school. Let's see, Lisa Curtin, the South Road School in Wilbraham, Massachusetts, decided to change the name of St. Patrick's Day.
She's ecological. That's why. She's just ecological.
Oh, okay. To O Green Day. Because it's to remove the discomfort that some students might have in celebrating St. Patrick's Day or St. Valentine's Day. And I guess at this school, St. Patrick's Day was I'll tell you why I'm laughing, was renamed to Caring and Kindness Day, according to the parents of the children in the school. Now, does that mean that from now on, we're going to talk about the Caring and Kindness Day massacre? Don't refer to it. This is going to be the same Valentine's Day massacre. It's the Caring and Kindness Day massacre.
February 14th, 1927. Bugs Moran and his gang were supposed to be at a particular North Side garage.
And that was February 14th, 1929. And the Caring and Kindness Day massacre.
They were very caring in that they used as many bullets as they could to cause death as quickly as possible.
Very kind of them, yes. And they turned them around against the wall, so they didn't even know what's coming.
Do you know why?
Why they what?
Because these things must be done delicately.
So,
the Wicked Witch just keeps she's just, ooh.
But think about it.
Did you hear the problem that happened with the Energizer Bunny?
Oh.
The Energizer Bunny finally died. And you better keep your hand on the button on this one. I don't think it's a bad one. But somebody put the Energizer Bunny's batteries in backwards, and he just kept coming and coming and coming. Okay. Well, that went over like a lead balloon, didn't it?
Maybe I should do the show alone again. Maybe you need to, don't you have a thing to go to? Don't you have some military exercise or something with your son that you have to help with next Thursday or the next few Thursdays afterwards? But come on.
But seriously, though, folks.
Seriously, though, folks. I like what at least one mom with 3 children who attended that school said, and very succinctly about changing the names of these 2 holidays.
Succinctly, that's a big word for you.
Succinctly. Well, I'm learning from you.
And a better teacher you couldn't have, I'm telling you.
It's really stupid, said Janet. Very simple. I like it when people get to the point about stuff like this. Speaking of...
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, I'm really offended because, not being Italian, they make a big hoop-de-doo about Columbus. And I really think they should rename Columbus Day, generic Explorers Day or something. And then I'll feel offended because I'm not an explorer.
Yeah, but American explorers, because that just means the conquest of America. That'd be offensive too. To
Obama would be apologizing for that too.
Excellent, absolutely. But let's talk about what Obama is doing. Speaking of our dear president, about supporting the pipeline to nowhere,
from nowhere
to nowhere, or at least from.
Well, yeah, because he's willing to help to try to put the lower part of the pipeline in, but not the upper part.
So
it'd be similar to saying, I'm going to give you help to build your house. I'm going to help you put your sink in. I'll buy you the glass, but we're not going to do anything to hook your house up to the water system. So how that helps, I have no idea. But he is the president, and he knows, I guess.
Oh, and how about the fact that if you were to look at a map of oil drilling now, unless I have missed my Economics 101 lesson on supply and demand. It's going to be one of those shows, folks. I don't.
No, this one's in very poor taste.
Oh, well, leave it alone then. You can leave it alone? Just something you saw?
Well, I was going to say Tammy Ducksworth's going to be running against Joe Walsh, but she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Oh. But that'd probably be in poor taste, so I don't think I'm going to say that. Don't say it.
You're not going to say that, right?
I won't.
Say that. That was just done. Okay, all right. Okay, so I think if you look at a map of where drilling is allowed, and this has to do with supply and demand. Now, my understanding is that when you increase supply, when you make supply more available, and if demand basically stays the same or doesn't rise as high as supply, that means the price goes down because there's more supply than demand. Now, I don't know how many of our listeners, our very intelligent listeners, understand the oil market as it exists. But, okay, it's a global oil market, fine. But that still means to me that if you start pumping out more oil into the entire global market, you're going to have more supply to meet the demand. And if you look at a map along of where federal land is available for drilling along the west coast of the United States and along the east coast of the United States, the west and east coast of the United States are virtually off limits to any type of federal drilling. God knows why the Gulf we were at some point able to get away with it in the Gulf. But if there is some economic professor out there who would like to call in and or send us at thelastword@yahoo.com.
And we'll be happy to have you as a guest.
How it is that more oil into the world energy supply does not result in lower oil prices, I would like that explained to me. Such as not drilling at ANWR, not drilling along the coasts, not having the Keystone Pipeline in place. How does that? I don't get it, guy.
And would the security?
My older brother too.
Would the security forces for the pipeline be the Keystone Cops? Oh well.
How often does a pipeline rupture? That's such an environmental threat. Well, the last time, I'm not talking about an oil rig, which I think we have 30,000 oil rigs, not even all U.S., some from the other countries like Cuba in there. Okay, we had the big spill last time, but there are 30,000 oil rigs. how often do they rupture? As a matter of fact, we have oil pipelines to send refined gasoline from Texas to Chicago, and I think one of the main pipelines follows underneath Illinois 83, and those pipelines have been there for years. So it's a gas or oil pipeline that comes all along the states, and as far as I know, it's never ruptured. It's never caused any. Haven't had any oil spillage along Illinois 83.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to suggest that technology has gotten better since the Alaskan pipeline.
Yeah, which never had a major rupture in and of itself. So where is the environmental problem with finishing up the pipeline? Are we going to have to save a little snail darter if a few drops of oil spill out of the pipeline? Is that the environmental problem? Sorry, folks. I'm all for the idea of helping out the little animals and things like that. But when it comes to helping people, I'm a people first person. I'm a people. Let's protect people. Let's help people with jobs. Let's help people have lower energy prices.
The tree huggers had their right. The woolly mammoth and the dinosaur would still be around.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't want to do anything to make them an endangered species.
Well, that would mean we wouldn't have to be around, I think. Or that we should have to subject ourselves to being eaten by them.
I have a biblical answer for that.
And you want to tell that at the other side of the...
We'll come back after the news.
Come back after the news and weather and traffic here on The Last Word, WIND 560 AM. Intelligent Talk.
They're lawyers, so you know they'll always have the last word. Here's Tom and Dave.
Okay, I said I was going to have a biblical reference for my point of view, so any of you tree huggers out there, you want to dispute God's holy word. As I recall, when you're reading the book of Genesis, it talks about how God gave man dominion over all the plants and animals. Now, that strikes me as you get to use them for man's benefit.
Especially after they turn into oil.
That's right. So, yeah, I'm sorry that there's three-horned owls left, and one of them's named Elizabeth. Who? No. That joke's for the birds. It's okay. We'll be here for another hour. Try the veal. Tip your waitstaff if you're at home. But seriously though.
Well, now we going to the serious part of the show? Now? Well, we are talking about okay. We are talking about murder, right? We will.
I wanted to cover something that came up last week, and it has to do with the propriety, if any, of sentencing a juvenile to natural life in prison. There are 79 prisoners across the nation who are currently serving natural life terms. And the issue that's coming up before the U.S. Supreme Court has to do with whether or not it's cruel and unusual punishment, basically to decide that some kid who's under 14 years old is just a total waste and can never be rehabilitated. Spencer Tracy at Boys Town can't do anything about it. Nobody can, and you got to take this 12, 13-year-old kid and lock him up for the rest of his life.
I find that a little tough, even though the circumstances over here were particularly, even though they were particularly horrible and gruesome in the way these deaths occurred. But I still have to say I have, on one hand, Tom, I have the feeling of, I think like you about at 14 years old, are you going to tell a kid that he's going to maybe have to spend the next 65 years of his life in jail at the age and that nothing can be done for a 14-year-old?
You have some of these forward-thinking states like Alabama and Arkansas, which of course brings to mind why we know the toothbrush was invented in the South. Because if it was in the North, they'd call it a teeth brush.
Oh.
But in many states,
we love you down there.
Yep. My daughter lives down there, and my son-in-law and my little G child, don't use the G word, are down there and just in Huntsville.
You just refer to him as son of your daughter.
That's right. Son of Amy.
Yeah, Liam, son of Amy.
That's right.
Son.
Call for juveniles charged as adults to be given either a death penalty or life in prison without parole. In 2005, the High Court abolished death penalties for teenage murders under the age of 18. So that basically means if you committed a murder under the age of 18, you have no alternative but natural life in prison.
Exactly.
That would be whether you're 12, 13 years old. And it's interesting that if you're over the age of 18, apparently you could get parole.
Oh, okay. You're a little more the expert on that than me.
Arkansas Assistant Attorney General Kent Holt was defending the life term given to Contrell Jackson, who at age 14 was standing nearby when another teenager shot and killed the store clerk. And he said teenagers must know if they commit the worst crimes, they can get the worst punishment. Now, maybe we always look and say, take your case up and hold it like the kaleidoscope and turn it and say, what if? And you turn it a little bit and see it changes. But so you're telling me that even if I'm standing there and I'm not an active participant in a sense of holding a weapon, that you're going to give me the same penalty that the shooter does. In Illinois, I know has accountability. We talked about the problems with the Illinois law that it permits abortion, but if a third party kills the woman's child, he can be liable for murder of an unborn child. So in one instance, the unborn child's a person, but in the other, for purposes of the woman terminating, it's not a person. And I fail to see the consistency in that. And one day maybe something.
Yeah, I would say, well, I'll tell you, the only way to make it consistent is to say that the mother has the legal right to terminate the life of a person, just like the state has the right to execute. So that's the only way I can see to make that legally consistent.
And make the admission that a fetus is a person.
And that the mother just has the right to terminate the life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somehow she has a paramount interest in human life.
And
I don't agree with that either, but at least it would be more consistent.
That brings us to something else the Supreme Court is considering over here, which is that a woman who is asking for Social Security benefits, even though because of in vitro fertilization, the children were born a year after the death of their father. So dad died. Somehow the sperm was frozen and kept for a period of time. So she gets inseminated after dad dies, and now she wants his Social Security benefits for the kids. And I think this just goes to the question of we who are religious refer to it as tampering with God. Maybe you want to call it tampering with Mother Nature, but I think this is what happens because it's not nice to fool with Mother Nature.
Or be in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Exactly. So this is what we sow. We reap and we sow.
So. We don't sow.
Sow
is a female pig.
Didn't get enough of your family for the holidays? Here's two brothers you can always count on for the last word. Tom and Dave.
Yes, indeed. You are back with little brother Dave and big brother Tom here on The Last Word. And like Tom mentioned, we started off a little bit with the last election that took place last Tuesday and just got into so much other news and interesting tidbits. Tom, are you ready? You want to share the answer though to our mind trap, or wait a little longer?
Little bit longer.
Okay, we'll wait a little bit longer. Then we'll tell you people. Well, okay, so we have Mitt Romney now taking Illinois by a pretty big percentage. And though I don't know if, given the states in the future, whether or not he's going to be able to have enough delegates to go to the convention and get nominated on the first ballot. But, Tom, do you think there'd be anything wrong with a brokered convention?
I do not. As a matter of fact, I get insulted when you hear people say, well, we got to get this thing wrapped up. Sooner we get it wrapped up, sooner we can face on the opponent. And why do we have to get it wrapped up? Because the sooner we have it, the sooner we'll get rid of our infighting. Then why have any primaries? Why not just have the first caucus in Iowa, and whoever walks away out of there, you say, well, that person won. And everybody else should just fall in and have a big unity. And join hands and sing Kumbaya, and we'll just have our president that way. And all the rest of the primaries, they're just dates on paper and mean nothing. I mean, a convention doesn't mean squat anymore. Hasn't for years and years, because you want to get somebody who's got all these votes and he's the nominee. So.
But I think since it's been so long ago, on the Democratic side, the last brokered convention was 1952, when Adlai Stevenson was elected, and the last Republican brokered convention was 1948, when Tom Dewey was brought in, and the last winning U.S. presidential nominee produced by a brokered convention was, of all people, Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1932.
We didn't have a couple rounds of going around with JFK?
No, JFK was able to make it on the first ballot. So now I realized that back then there were make it on the first ballot. What is with you today? I'm happy. I'm happy.
We're talking about.
I'm happy. You're happy.
You're talking about Obama being or Romney being Obama light.
Yeah.
And everybody was comparing Obama to Kennedy. So what does that make him? Kennedy dark? Or Kennedy heavy?
I don't know. I got Kennedy dark is the more appropriate place thing. But a brokered convention, because I don't think there are a lot of people out there that understand it. A brokered convention means that no one's come to the convention with enough delegates to get nominated, pledged to them that they have to vote on the first ballot. So you do call your first ballot. Officially, you have to have the first ballot. And when the first ballot is done, everybody, all delegates are released from their pledge to the candidates, and the wheeling and dealing can start as to even somebody who was not even in the process. Somebody outside the process. Just using it because my first name comes to mind, Sarah Palin or Marco Rubio. They could potentially be picked and drafted to be the presidential nominee, even though they didn't participate in this process.
Yeah, because I can't get it, but I don't want you to get it, so we'll have a third guy. Then neither of us gets it. Ha ha.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. That could happen.
Now, I was talking with Josh, my son, yesterday, and we were talking about post-convention, and his suggestion was who the nominee is. We always know who the nominee's vice president is going to be. Why doesn't the nominee say, not only do you know who my VP is going to be, I've got it cleared, this is who my cabinet's going to be. This is going to be my choice for Secretary of State. This is going to be my choice for Secretary of Defense. Donald Trump is going to be Secretary of Commerce and Industry. And just lay it all out and say, this is the team I want to put in place so you know what we're going to be doing and the quality of the people that are going to be coming in should I win.
I agree. That's a good idea. That's a good idea for people to know.
I mean, theoretically, you know that who's that goof in the Attorney General's slot?
Oh, Holder?
Holder,
oh, yeah. I'm going to nominate Eric Holder. That's going to be my choice over here. So there, who exactly I'm going to put into these spots.
Or who's going to stay in that spot for another 4 years. Mm-hmm. A guy who's going to selectively not do anything to prosecute voter intimidation in Philadelphia because the intimidators happen to be black. Not going to do anything to prosecute or investigate Acorn or anything like that because that's an Obama pet.
Exactly. So a broker convention, and you know what I was never sure of, I guess this is just tradition, is you notice how the party out of power always has their convention first, and then the party in power has their convention second. So, Republicans are having the convention first this year, Democrats are having the convention second. As far as I know, there's no law that mandates that. I think that's just following tradition. Yeah, I don't know why. I have no rhyme or reason for it, but I don't know if anybody's ever paid attention to that, but that's what happens.
And if you're going to complain that you don't have enough time between the primary and the general, if you have a spirited primary, move the damn primary back. Or move the convention back.
Up. Yeah, move the convention back.
Move the convention into July or the end of June or something. Then you'll have plenty of time to put together your whole platform and get your marching orders.
So we're going to be wrapping things up here on The Last Word. until it's time for next week. But we're going to do that in our final segment coming up. Talk a little bit more about politics over here, broker conventions, Romney, Obama, Santorum, and the rest of the crowd here at WIND 560 AM on the Laz Word.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the Laz Word, Tom and Dave.
Okay, we're going to begin this segment by thanking all of you who listened and stayed up so you could find out what the answer was to the mind trap.
Yeah, especially if everything else we said you didn't care about.
Question. Justin Summers walks up and down a hill, which is 6 kilometers for a round trip. So that tells you it's 3 up, 3 back. His dog, being slower, walks half the speed. When Justin reaches the top of the hill, he turns around and walks down, meeting his dog part way. Justin continues walking to the bottom of the hill at the same speed. The dog follows him, also maintaining his original speed. How far does the dog walk?
How far?
The answer is 4 kilometers.
And because?
Because when Justin reached the top of the hill, he will have walked 3 kilometers, and the dog will have been halfway up or 1.5 kilometers. Justin turns around and starts to walk back, but his dog continues walking up the hill until they meet. They will meet at the 2 kilometer point. So the dog will then turn around at that point and follow Justin down the hill, completing a 4 kilometer stroll.
Amen.
If you came up with something other than 4 kilometers, you fell into the mind trap. And we'll have another one for you next week.
And as we are in our final segment, we're kind of staying a little bit with what's going on with the convention and coming up with the Republicans. You know, it would be interesting to have a broker convention, simply because we haven't had one in so long, and to see how the wheeling and dealing would go.
Interesting to see how the media would handle it.
Well, I think the media would say that it's terrible. The Republican Party, is so divided.
If it was the Democrats, it would be the party activity at its finest.
Oh, yeah, that would be the democratic process working. But what would you do, Tom? I mean, if you came in and Romney didn't make it on the first ballot, do you think Romney would, little wheeling and dealing, that Romney would deserve to ultimately get it? Or if Romney wouldn't make it on the first ballot, should he be out of the call? Should he be out of the?
No, I think he stays around. But I think that what has to be the most important, and Democrats seem to learn this lesson much better than Republicans do. You say what you say about me on Monday. We have an election on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, if you won, Dave, you're my man.
Yeah.
And the Republicans will harbor their little snits and hissy fits and continue even afterwards. You got Ron Paul saying, well, will you support the ultimate nominee? Well, I don't know. It'll depend who it is.
That's right. That's dangerous.
You're
bad.
starting it off already, Ronnie. Come on. If the people, you're big into people and the people rejected you, then have the good sense to say the people have spoken and I'm going along with. He can join the We're the People party.
Oh, yeah.
Some people want Romney, and some people want me, and some people don't. And I want to tell you, I'm for the people.
That's right. We are always for the people on this show.
That's right. So, there you do sing Kumbaya and stuff. And maybe we pull an Obama, and maybe you make Santorum a Secretary of State. Maybe you make Newt. Turn me into a newt. You make Newt the ambassador to the United Nations.
It's the eye of Newt while looking over you.
That's right. I got better. And let's remember that this country has survived a lot of things, but I really question how much resolve we have to be able to withstand 4 more years of Obama.
Yeah, this is going to be a bigger test. That would be a bigger test than the Depression or World War II.
No kidding. I could see czars coming out the wazoo. And it's not like he cares.
You know what? I'd like to take the time to offer some special congratulations to some of the candidates that you and I worked for and supported. We'd like to congratulate Senator Kirk Dillard on his overwhelming victory for re-election to the state Senate.
Judge Pat O'Shea, or Judge-elect Pat O'Shea.
For his win to become a full-circuit judge in DuPage County, and Tim Whalen on
Forest
his
Preserve elect.
win for Forest Preserve in DuPage County. And with that, we'll have Mike Connolly on next week from the Senate here on The Last Word.